Welcome to Name 3 Songs. I'm Sarah Fagan.
I'm Jenna Million, and this is a podcast where we discuss feminist issues in music and pop culture, all while empowering fangirls.
Because let's be honest, fangirls knew about that band way before you did.
And today, we're getting candid with Aldrch.
So if you're new here, welcome to the podcast. You're listening to our interview series. We've talked to a handful of artists so far, including Quarters of Change, Vacations, and Charlotte Sands. But today, we're talking to Aldrch, and this conversation was really cool because we got to cover one of my personal favorite topics, which is New York City rock music, but also Matty Healy being a problem.
I think this conversation was honestly a perfect fit of Sarah and I's personal interests because I'm a big fan of hyperpop music and we don't usually get to talk about that on our regular podcast or on our interview series.
Yeah. And I feel like it's really cool too because like the music that Aldrch pulls from that's like more recent probably pulls from most of the MySpace bands that I used to listen to, which like I guess now they would be classified as hyperpop, but then I think it was like neon emo. I don't even know what it was.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking like Hello Goodbye, like Head Automatica, Cash Cash, because like Aldrch also pulls from indie and rock music. And so it's very much like rock star meets pop star, which is Jenna and my favorite genre of music right now.
It's very much giving slut rock. It's very much giving Kesha, which we love, and also comes up in our conversation because Sam, in addition to being an artist, in addition to being a producer, is also a DJ. So while he is crate digging, he is also gathering inspiration for his music.
And we did get to see him do a DJ set together when Jenna was in New York in December. And the whole night, like, I think maybe every like 10 songs or so, he would like play Kesha. And we would just be like, Kesha? More Kesha? It was honestly as if like a DJ was birthed from our dreams.
It was a great time.
It was a great time. He also played Metro Station. Like, he knows what he's doing.
As you can tell, we're big fans. So today we're talking to Sam, also known as Aldrch, about all of this and his upcoming EP, which is out February 9th. And now let's go get candid with Sam. Hi, Sam. Welcome to the show, and thanks for joining us today.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
So jumping into things, you're originally from Minneapolis and moved to New York a few years ago. And, you know, it's really interesting. I always think artists are often influenced by the cities they live in and the music scenes that are kind of happening in those places. So do you feel like Minneapolis had any sort of music scene influence on you, or was that something you were really looking for when you came to New York?
Honestly, well, I mean, I've been playing violin since I was 6. So like the music that I was into as a kid was a lot more like classical music and focused in that sort of world. I didn't really start producing and making my own music till I came to New York. So yeah, I wasn't involved too much in a music scene in Minneapolis, but definitely like the scenes that Minneapolis has had have definitely affected like my influences and my production. I mean, of course, Prince is a legend, a Minneapolis goat. Definitely take a lot of inspiration from that. And there's also like a really cool like Midwest emo, math rock, like house show scene in Minneapolis. Yeah, when I was first starting college, I lived in like the college town. It's called Dinkytown. I lived my street number was 420, which was pretty swag.
Nice.
Great time for a college student.
Yeah. But yeah, just like going to house shows around there, it was like always free admission, just like in the basement of some like beat up fratty house. And that definitely shaped like the trajectory of me as a musician and a producer.
So you said you started producing when you got to New York. Do you feel like you just kind of fell into this, or you kind of saw like the music and art scene here? And how did you kind of make your way into it?
Honestly, I did sort of fall into it. I mean, it's like a year before I moved to New York, I started Aldrch and I started seriously making music. But it wasn't until I moved to New York that I like really met like a network of people that I would start working with. And yeah, I mean, I totally fell into it. I have my good friend and now roommate. His name is Adi. He goes by Kare. He's a videographer. He was coming out to New York to stay with me when he was still living in Minneapolis. And he found this band called Poptropicaslutz. I don't know if you guys are familiar.
Yes.
Yeah, so he found their song Romeo and Juliet on SoundCloud and wanted to shoot a video for it. This was like when they were still super small. So he came out to New York to shoot that, and I just tagged along and shot grip for it. and introduced myself to them. And I don't know like how it necessarily happened, but I got on a FaceTime call with Christian from PTS after that, and I had like put some drums on one of their songs. And yeah, from there we just started working like, I don't know, like 3 to 5 times a week, just like banging out demos. And that's sort of how it all happened.
Amazing.
It was actually Christian that gave me the idea to start the Aldrch project on Spotify as like a producer artist, where I don't necessarily do vocals, but it's like it was like sort of trying to be like the Diplo of hyperpop.
Nice.
But since then I've moved on to, you know, being a more proper artist.
So also just thinking about like New York City and like what it means to be here like as a musician. We've talked to some other artists about the idea of kind of like New York City being a little bit like alive and like music history kind of just like being in the streets, and a lot of people specifically move here because of music or like will come here and like feel very inspired. And so do you feel like there was something about being here where you're like, okay, like this music world is like speaking to me and like something that I want to be part of my legacy as well?
Totally. I mean, just being here has like introduced me to so many people that I now regularly work with, like visual artists and other music acts, producers, DJs. I mean, yeah, it's just sort of like a general scene that like cultivates a lot of inspiration for me, like finding new music and new inspirations for songs to make, or finding artists that like I'll have their whole discography on my USB and be playing at the clubs. Yeah, I mean, it's just like a general like inspiration blast, which is pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And so getting into kind of your music, I feel like you draw from so many different elements and sounds, kind of to these categories being both hyperpop and indie rock. And I think hyperpop is quite an interesting thing because like if you look at the emo Warped Tour pop punk circle, we had neon emo as bands doing that. But now hyperpop has also like evolved into being like very much like an internet movement. And there's a lot of PC music and rabbit holes of other music of this genre. And then at the same time, your indie leaning songs are, you know, pulling from like MGMT in the 1975. And so like, how did you come about finding your sound through all of this?
That's a good question. Honestly, I'm not really sure.
It just happened.
Yeah, I kind of just like stumbled around. I started, you know, like in that very like PC music hyperpop lane, like super auto-tuned, huge 808s, and like your like 100 gex snare that goes like,
yeah,
you know. I mean, since I was little, like I wanted to be like a rock star and like play in a rock band.
I love that.
Yeah,
I relate deeply, and I'm not musically gifted in the slightest.
I mean, it's just sort of like the dream.
Yeah.
So I had this idea for this rock album, Industry Standard, and I had so much fun making it, producing it, recording it. It came out really, really fast. I was like doing a song a day, just banging them out in the summer. That was so fun, and it really helped me find sort of my voice, especially my lyrical voice, because like I never really, I mean, I was a producer to start. Yeah. So like I never really felt like I had much to say like in words. It would always just come out, you know, like on the page.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that album like helped me find, you know, my voice lyrically, and also just like how to sound. I know like if you like go back through my discography, there's like some older stuff with my vocals on it that's very different. So yeah, it like helped me sort of hone in on stuff and gather inspirations from other stuff.
Yeah. Did you feel like with that album, were you specifically setting out to make something that was more rock leaning than what you had done previously?
Totally. And I think it served its purpose for me. And I'm really glad that I did it. But I feel like in the grand scheme of things, I sort of forgot or pushed to the side like where I came from with like electronic music. So that's like what this new EP is. It's like taking like sort of what I found in like how I make music and like what my voice is from Industry Standard and applying that to, you know, like my older sort of style of production. And it like,
I mean,
made something new.
Yeah. Yeah. And from me personally listening through the album and also what you've put out so far of the EP, I think that's very apparent of you kind of exploring those rock sounds, seeing what you like from it. And then with this EP, I was going to say, like, it even felt like you're now combining the two to kind of move forward with that sound.
100%. Yeah, that's the vibe.
I think it's like really interesting just looking at your like artist aesthetics and your visuals that you used alongside your music and how reminiscent it feels of MySpace and like the MySpace kind of era, and like being someone who is very much like in the thick of it when it comes to like MySpace bands and that whole kind of movement. I think it's really interesting because I think for like the quote unquote like nostalgia's sake, like when people think about like Warped Tour and like pop punk and like all of that stuff, it's kind of different than like the MySpace music of like what I would think about it, because I think like the quote unquote MySpace music would be more of like the neon emo kind of like bordering on what we now call hyperpop, but at the time like we didn't have a name for.
Totally.
When it comes to all of that, like, I mean, I assume like obviously like this was like something that you're like doing on purpose, but as you were like creating the music and creating these visuals, like did you feel the need to like lean into it more? Because you're like, okay, like this is like what I'm pulling from in like my own way, or
like with the visuals.
Yeah, it's just like such an interesting aesthetic to like go all in on.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, like when I was young, I was sort of chronically offline, and like my parents like totally boot camped me into like practicing violin every day. So like I never really like had like a proper like induction into like all of that like MySpace era stuff. I definitely like got a lot of that just like rubbed off on me from working with PTS so much, because they're like the epitome of like that MySpace, you know, like hello goodbye.
Hot Topic core.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Hot Topic core. I mean, in terms of visuals, it's like I do it all myself and I pride myself on like it looking good, but it's all just sort of like, you know, I just like I'm a stuff guy. I have a lot of things, a lot of cool looking things with buttons and lights. I mean, it's all basically just me like grabbing stuff in my room and putting it in a studio, and I don't know, just making something that looks like aesthetically pleasing. And especially for visuals, I stand by the philosophy that like you make something that looks cool and make it mean something later, you know?
Yeah. It's really cool because it feels like Aldrch kind of like as an artist and a brand is like very like you're very clear on what you're doing. And I think like that's really awesome, because sometimes you'll like listen to an artist and then go look at their visuals and stuff and it's like these are not the same person. Like I would have absolutely no idea. And so I just think it's really awesome how you are able to kind of like, I don't know, just everything feels very cohesive, and like I don't think you see that as much anymore.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I mean it's just sort of like a underlying like it's like nerd rock. It's like I like have a lot of weird nerdy stuff, and I feel like my music sounds like that. So if I, you know, show off all my cool nerdy machines, it just sort of fits.
Love that.
So I was thinking like, I don't know, kind of like tying this visual aspect into it. I know like you did a tour last summer and you played a show for like your industry standard album and stuff like that. And I'm assuming like being a producer, you're spending a lot of time like making music on a computer, and especially like being hyperpop, like a lot of it comes in being very technical and just digital. And so for you, what's it like being able to translate this and like your artist image into a live setting?
Oh, it's so fun for me. I mean, there are just like so many things that you can do with a live show. I have a lot of fun playing synths and stuff live. I mean, like I found that doing live stuff, it's really, really hard to play and sing at the same time, especially if you want to like put on like a show.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be dancing around and stuff and interacting with the crowd, it's hard to be focusing on that and then also singing and playing. So I have like a pretty like automated setup in terms of like tracks and playback. I've done like setting up like DJ effects on my vocals where I'm like chopping up my vocals and like adding reverbs with knobs and buttons and stuff. And something that I just started doing, I just got some lights and I've been programming lights in Ableton.
Oh, cool.
It's really, really interesting. You can like set it up so you can use MIDI, which is like how like, you know, the language of DAWs and stuff, using MIDI to program lights to, you know, turn on and off, strobe, change colors, move around. So essentially like you can just like produce lights.
That's so cool.
for your live set. So I've been doing that a lot.
I one time saw this band. They were from England, and I'd have to remember what band it was, but he was playing a MIDI clarinet on stage, but it was not
Fire.
a clarinet. Like, it was a different instrument, but just playing a MIDI clarinet on stage. And I feel like you could do that. You should maybe do that.
Totally. Yeah, those things are sick. I want to get one of those. I'm not a woodwind player though, so I don't know.
A violin.
Yeah.
Hey.
I do. I have played violin on stage. We did that for the whole PTS tour. That was really fun.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah.
I know there's other bands with violins.
Yeah, what?
No, Yellowcard's the only one.
Is that like the pop punk band with the violinist, or is that something else that I'm thinking of?
No,
it's like Ocean Avenue.
Yeah, I remember on that tour we like kept getting like everyone was just like making that comparison. I was like, okay, all right.
You're like, okay, I get it. Okay, that's cute. That's cute for you.
Okay, it's like for a lot of youths, it's like you're watching the Ocean Avenue music video for the first time at like 12 years old, and you're like, a violin in a rock band?
I know. Oh my God. That's so funny. When I was in elementary school, my friends were like starting a band, and I was so sad because like I wanted to be a part of the band so bad, and they're like, you can't have violin in a rock band.
You're like, watch me.
Did they not see School of Rock? You're like, cello, the bass.
I don't know. I don't know. I know. Cello.
So in addition to being a producer and having your own music as Aldrch, you're also a DJ. And we, had the chance to see one of your sets. And it's very clear that you enjoy mixing like a lot of different sounds together. And when we saw your set, you were playing a lot of Kesha, which was deeply important to us. So thank you for your service.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm curious, like, how much time you spend like digging for music specifically like for your DJ sets, and like, does that also impact then your producing artistry?
Yeah, I mean, totally. Actually, DJing has been a really good thing for my production because it means I'm listening to a lot more music.
Yeah.
And I mean, I always am the most depressed and have the hardest time making music when I'm not listening to music. So like spending time like crate digging, on SoundCloud and whatever really has like done a lot for my inspiration as a producer. But yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of fun. Like you find new music and you figure out, new mixes you can do. I just found this new artist who's like a total like blog house revival guy, and I'm apprehensive to say his name because I want to gatekeep him. No, I'm just kidding. His name is Dear Cupid. I don't know if he's had another project, but he only has one song out called Roll It Down, and it is so sick.
Nice.
It's really
cool.
cool.
Will have to check it out.
Yeah, it sounds like Justice in like the prime era.
Yeah. We heard your music and we were like, this guy loves Kesha.
It's stupid how much I love Kesha.
But like but honestly it makes sense. Like even with the music you make, like it makes sense.
Oh yeah, totally.
It wasn't that far, I believe.
No, not at all.
And like Kesha also played Bamboozle, so I feel like in you wanting to make like slutty rock music, Kesha also wanted to make slutty rock music.
Oh,
music.
Completely. Yeah, she's like the queen of slutty rock music.
She really is. So we do need to talk about the fact that you have an EP coming out soon called Would You Like to Go Out? You've been like dropping songs periodically from that EP, but it's all coming out on February 9th. And most recently you dropped the song People Are the Enemy and Fate from the EP. And both of these tracks like feel pretty heavy. So what's the story you're wanting to tell with these? And how does it play into like the greater story of the EP?
Okay. All right. Well, both songs were written a few months ago, and it was a time in my life where I was sort of having like a moment just like with like relationships and learning about people in my life, just like sort of, I don't know, like stumbling through life because it's hard, and you have your differences with people and things happen. And so I was sort of just like taking out my unresolved feelings on my microphone. So yeah, I mean that's
how you get angsty rock. That's how you get slutty rock. That's how you
exactly. Just channeling my my anger and disdain, and I mean it worked out pretty well. But yeah, the songs are definitely heavy and they're pretty jaded lyrics. But I mean, I love like taking something depressing and putting it over like something that you want to dance to.
Right.
I love, yeah, same.
I think that's like something that a lot of people can get behind, especially like anyone is going through anything where they can, relate to, what I'm saying in the songs. I feel like they don't necessarily want to like sit and cry about it. They would rather, like
Yeah.
just like let it all
Dance it
hang
out.
out. Yeah.
Scream.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like having that moment of like, why am I crying in the club right now is like
It's
Totally.
a canon event.
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. I personally like love pop music that like maybe you can cry to, but also not if you don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I cry in the club, once every weekend. So
Every time you play Kesha.
yeah,
Tears
every
of joy.
time. Every DJ set I have, I'm crying 100% of the time. So
The whole hour, the whole 2 hours.
It's like,
No.
Whole 4
come
hours.
see me DJ. I will be sobbing.
yeah.
Tissues available. So being a producer and like working in a genre like hyperpop, do you feel sometimes like there's so many layers to things that you have a hard time knowing when to like call a song done?
Yeah. Yeah, big time. I was actually bouncing out the stems to the EP tracks, and I was noticing how many tracks there are in each song. It gets pretty ridiculous at a certain time, at a certain point.
Do you ever like listen back to something and you're like, maybe I went a little too overboard with how much I put into this?
Honestly, no. I feel like
Okay.
like every time I like overthink and overproduce stuff, like I'm always like so happy with the end product. It's like it's always the songs that are really simple, very like 4-track, like guitar, bass,
Yeah.
drums, vocal, that I'm like I listen back and I'm like, like I could have put that there, could have done this differently. I mean, I'm a producer's producer, so like I'm like I will make the label mad and make my manager mad because I'm like I can't deliver this until it's done, and like you just gotta deal with it. I have to sit with it.
Yeah, maybe your new tagline is maximalist music for crying in the club.
That's
There you
really
go.
good.
So you in past interviews have talked about the fact that you are a fan of the 1975, and we
Yeah.
ourselves are fans.
Big fan.
We ourselves are also fans of the 1975, and that doesn't, come with its own set of things. But in listening to like the tracks you have released for the EP, End of the Night in particular, when listening to it, felt very reminiscent of the 1975.
Totally.
And so what is it for you as an artist about the 1975's music and production that like stuck out to you that you were like, I want to emulate this in a song?
I mean, first of all, it's just the best pop music I think I've ever heard. It's topical, it's just incredibly well produced. Honestly, like a lot of it is really maximal, and even the stuff that's like your classic 4-track, 4-piece band song is still like maximally produced. I mean, like as a producer, it's like really easy to be a huge fan of the 1975 because like George and Matty, I don't know if anyone else in the band produces. The production is like really what gets me, and also the writing is incredible, even if it's like really stupid lyrics. It's all like it's all perfectly placed and so well thought out. And I base a lot of my live show off Matty Healy because he moves around really great.
But speaking of Matty, and speaking about being Jewish and liking Matty Healy,
hell yeah,
and just being anything that's not also what Matty Healy looks like, and liking Matty Healy, it's a little bit of can be a little bit of a difficult thing, and it's something we talk about quite a lot on our podcast. We've had multiple episodes about kind of like from the beginning of the podcast about Matty Healy's God complex, if you will, and how like they're a band that I think also has been like unfairly judged based off of who their fan base is and like what they're made up of and like all that sort of stuff. And it's like Matty Healy is a very double-edged sword of there's very few people in his position that speak on things, but also at the same time, because he wants to be speaking on things, he does dumb things on stage that make a lot of people feel isolated.
Totally.
So like as somebody who takes a lot of inspiration from him, like how does one cope when like it's not just like being a music fan, but also somebody who's like inspired you in your art?
Yeah, it's definitely weird Like, especially like, you know, my parents are also Jewish, and like
No way.
they saw the whole fiasco with like Matty Healy doing a Nazi salute on stage, and like,
Yeah.
you know, we had a whole conversation about it. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like I saw it for, I think, what it was intended to be. It like was
Yeah.
supposed to be like a performative reference to, you know, Kanye's anti-Semitism,
Yeah.
which I mean, I think like was like a topical thing to do at a show. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily think it was like the right thing, like the right move.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, you're throwing up a Nazi salute on a stage at a stadium for like 30,000
Yeah.
people. You know, that's not going to end well, and that's
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's tough, and I don't really know how to navigate it. I mean, like
Yeah.
Kanye, like is also like one of my
Yeah.
favorite artists, one of my favorite producers, huge inspiration to a lot of my music.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, I don't know. It's like, it's heartbreaking, and it's like, it's hard because like I understand aspects of it, but I like am also angered by aspects of it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of just like taking it with a grain of salt, because like it's not like I have to like, you know, stick my neck out and defend this guy who's like super famous who doesn't even know me. But like, it's also like I don't condone, you know, necessarily
Yeah.
what he's doing. So yeah, I don't know. It's something that I'm still figuring out how to navigate. But yeah, you know.
No, I think like that added layer of, it's like you're not just a fan. You're like, oh, you can like hear semblances of like their inspiration in my music and like all that sort of stuff. And I know like some like music fans, like this affects so much like stronger than others, where it's like, okay, they do this one thing and I'm never gonna listen to them again. Like there's
Yeah.
gonna be no coming back.
Yeah.
And like I think for like me personally with Matty, like there have been these moments where I'm like, okay, I like can't stomach it for like a little
Yeah,
bit.
totally.
And it's funny like
Sarah's
looking
Spotify
at like
Wrapped was so funny, because you could see the exact point in time where she stopped listening to the 1975.
Really? That's
Yeah.
funny.
because it's like it like would fall off for like a month, and then I'd be like, ugh, whatever, I'm over it. But like, am I don't know,
Yeah.
because like, can you ever really be fully, because it's, I don't know, he's a little bit insufferable, but at the same time it's like the art is so good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's trying and
I
nobody
know.
else is trying.
That's true.
And then I'm like, why am I making excuses for him? He's always being anti-Semitic on his Instagram stories.
I know. It really sucks when like the like the one celebrity who you love like just has total like Reddit incel humor, but like is
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
at the same time like one of the only people with a platform like actually saying something that makes sense
Yeah.
and something that people need
Yeah.
to hear.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
like I commend him for, you know, a lot of the things
Yeah.
that he says, because they are smart and well informed.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's complicated and something that like a lot of music fans are kind of navigating in their own time and way, and figuring out how they feel about the scenario. But also, I mean, using Matty Healy as a great example, like one could argue maybe that he has a certain type of persona when he's on stage or when he's like opening his mouth. That's maybe sometimes a little bit different than even what we hear from him in his music. And like we've talked a lot about the idea of persona, like on our radio show and our podcast, of just how sometimes artists use kind of like a persona either to step into a different version of themselves or to just step into like a larger than life version of themselves that like aligns with the artistry they're making. So do you feel like you have like a persona that you kind of put on when you're becoming Aldrch?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it only is really apparent like when I'm doing like the live show. It's a very like, I don't know, I just sort of immerse myself in like the most like heightened version of myself.
Yeah.
Just like doesn't really care. And I mean, I would love for you guys to see me perform live sometime to see what that entails, but it's really fun. I mean, like I don't think I've really played enough shows to like figure out like if there's like actually like a persona that I like, you know, put myself into. But I mean, it definitely feels like, I don't know, I really felt it on my first ever show. It was like before, like months and months before Industry Standard actually came out, and it was like when I had like finished all the demos in like a week, And
Mm-hmm.
I did a show on my birthday on May 3rd
Nice.
last year, and it was just like so freeing. It was me and my 3 friends on stage doing the 4-piece band thing, and like all my
Nice.
homies were there.
Yeah.
PTS was there, my manager was there, like
Yeah.
everyone in New York that I've
All
ever
the good
known.
vibes. Good vibes only.
Yeah.
Good vibes are the admission price.
Totally. Well, it was $10, but
okay, that too. But you know, in spirit.
Yeah, in spirit.
$10 worth of good vibes.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I mean, just like getting on the stage and like being able to like, I was like, I finally like made the music that I feel is like actually like coincides with my voice as an artist.
Mm.
And it was just like really freeing interacting with the crowd and just like rolling around on stage and, you know, kicking shit over. But yeah, I definitely need to get back out there in terms of the live show and like keep honing in like what it means to step on stage.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the idea of persona, I mean, I kind of love what you said of on stage being like the 150% version of yourself. And I always appreciate when artists kind of like recognize that, because I think, you know, when you're going on stage, like you're there to put on a performance. And I think, you know, at least for me, having the mental separation of like, no, like I'm doing this when I'm on stage, it kind of like helps you step into this like larger than life version of yourself.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, like, if I was just like to get on stage and be like how I am in my everyday life, like, yeah, I mean, it'd be like, it'd be kind of boring.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you know, I'm not like a crazy guy, but on stage, I am.
Well, I think it's nice because it gives an artist like an opportunity to like really become the music, like rather than just be like, oh, like this is just me being me. And I think like when it comes to live shows as fans, like you want to feel like you're genuinely experiencing the music. And I think that goes back to the thing we were talking about earlier, where like your music and your visuals and all of that like feel seamless. And so the thought of like putting on a live show that like continues that pattern like obviously feels like something that's very important to you and like obviously important to the crowd as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So as we mentioned, you have your EP coming out February 9th. What else can the people expect from you in 2024?
Oh man, let's see. Well, I made a song the other day and it's really good, so I will release that after the EP comes out.
Maybe more shows on the horizon.
Please.
Maybe another tour this year.
I would love to do a EP release show in like March or April. I really want to do Mercury Lounge. I was supposed to open for my good friend Curtis Waters. I don't know if you guys know about Curtis Waters. Just a wonderfully stand-up guy. It's one of my favorite people I've met in music. But he unfortunately got sick in the middle of our tour, right before we were supposed to play Mercury Lounge. It was going to be a big smash of a show, but I want to go back there and do a release party / show at Mercury Lounge.
Yeah, that'd be so fun.
I just really want to get back out there with the live stuff. I think that's like one of the strongest things that I have under my belt, and I want people to see it. Because it's pretty fun. We have fun. It's just like it's a fun combination of like a club party DJ set and a live show.
So the last question that we like to ask everybody is, so the ethos of Name 3 Songs is to empower fangirls, and we think it's very important to be a critical consumer but also celebrate the things we love unapologetically. So Sam, what are you a fangirl of?
Ooh, okay. All right. I am a fangirl of the 1975. Of course. It can be anything, right? It doesn't have to be
anything. Absolutely anything. You can't leave out Kesha though.
All right. Fine. I take back the 1975 and I put Kesha because I haven't been listening to the 1975 as much. All right. I'm a fangirl of Kesha, Lego sets, and home improvement.
All right, this has been a lovely chat. I love getting to hear about all of your music production, everything you have going on. So thank you, Aldrch. Thank you, Sam, for joining us today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for getting candid with us and Aldrch. This has been Sarah and Jenna from Name 3 Songs. And if you have thoughts, feelings, questions, or you want to come chat with us, you can find us at Name 3 Songs on Instagram or TikTok.
And to get your pop culture fix, you can listen to new episodes of Name 3 Songs podcast every Wednesday. Until next time, never let anyone make you feel bad about your favorite band.